Hey everyone, welcome to Wager Talk. My name is Minty. I'll be your host today. Joining me today is Carmine Bianco at Carmine Bianco WT on Twitter. This is going to be a sports betting 101 hockey handicapping video. Since I am born and raised in Vegas, I love the Vegas Golden Knights, and yeah, I am a bandwagoner. I didn't watch hockey before they came to Vegas, and hockey is so fun to watch.
It is, and you picked a fantastic time to start watching it. Vegas has got a fantastic team. So
They do. The games are so much fun. So let's get right into it. What makes hockey a winnable sport for the average bettor?
I have to believe a sheer volume of games. You've got 1,230 games in an NHL season. Obviously, every team plays 82 games. So unlike NFL, where you've got 16 games or so or 16 weeks of games or 17 weeks of games, the NHL season is great. On any given night, there's 4 or 5 games, and because of that volume, you can pass on so many games because there's another one that comes. It's completely different than the NFL in that sense. So for the fact that you have that many games throughout a season, you can literally pick and choose your spots. And this is where sort of discipline of being a gambler and a sports bettor comes in, is don't bet a game just because it's there. So
that's what people do all the time. Now, when looking at overnight lines, what are you looking at that bettors should focus on?
There's a few things. I think one of the most important things, like whether you're a novice bettor or you've been doing this for a while, there's a lot of things that you have to look at as far as overnight lines. Some of the key things of looking at, and some of the things I look at when I'm sort of trying to break down games and see if I can find any to post on Wager Talk, is you've got to look at the schedule the week before, the week after. Don't just look at tonight's games. Look at where teams are coming from, where they've been, where they're going. Typically, some NHL teams, there's patterns. If they play back-to-back and you're now looking at a Wednesday schedule and that team played on Tuesday, there's a good chance, and you sort of pick this up as you go along, that they're not going to start their regular goalie. So much like Vegas, Fleury gets the night off. You don't look at that, and you bet the game, and you're like, okay, why is Subban in net? I don't want this bet. And so back-to-back, some teams don't play very well back-to-back games. Some teams who are playing their third game in 4 nights don't play very well. So it's looking at sort of those type of trends of teams. There's things like an East Coast team coming back from a 6-game trip on the West Coast. Their first game back, and this sort of transcends hockey. You see this in baseball, you see this in other sports, where that first game back, the team hasn't gotten their legs back. They play a flat game, and vice versa, a West Coast team returning back off an East Coast trip.
It's when we, from the West Coast, go to the East Coast and then come back. We don't get right into our work schedule and our routine
It does take a while. And if you're playing the very next day after returning back, so let's say the night before, it's something that you have to look at. There's some great sites online that you can find starting goalies. And we'll probably put it in the video at some point. We'll put it in there, but or you can just Google starting goalies, and the 3 sites will pop up, and you can find out the goalie who came off the ice first in the morning practice, and he is going to be your starting goalie that day. You can see stats on him, save percentage. A lot of these things are important when you're looking at totals. So those are some of the things I think that are most important when you're trying to
look at overnight.
If you can find 2 or 3 of them within a game, then that should become a play for you.
Beautiful. Now, do trends have any importance in handicapping these games?
Trends are fun. If you're at a bar and you're talking to friends about this, they've won 8 games in a row when starting so and so. They're great. You shouldn't place. The deciding factor of wagering on a game should never be based on a trend. If Pittsburgh's playing Buffalo and they've scored 7 goals in their last 10 games on average, that doesn't mean you head to the windows and you bet the over in the game, because there's so many factors that went into those games. But like last year, there was a trend last year, and I only stumbled upon it through Kelly of Wager Talk and Alex B. Smith of Sports Memo, the Chicago Blackhawks first period over 1.5. It hit like 18 in a row.
Wow.
And eventually as the books caught up, they raised the juice on these plays and that you'd have to pay. And this year we've seen a trend of sportsbooks are now putting 2 as the over-under for the first period. So it's trends are important, but they shouldn't be the basis of your wagers.
Typically, I see like 1.5, right?
Yeah.
Now, what advice would you give anyone that wants to bet the total or puck line?
Now more so than any other year, and I was talking with a few hockey guys earlier in the day about this, is the NHL as a sport is evolving. It's such a quicker game. Players are faster. This isn't the New Jersey Devils neutral zone lock of the early 2000s. It's a fast-paced game. And because of such, we're seeing totals that used to be 5, 5.5 are now 6, 6.5. There are probably 4 or 5 very good defensive teams, and you always see their totals like a St. Louis Blues type of team, or even in Arizona, the Coyotes, where you see the totals at 5.5, Dallas.
Right.
But for the most part, they're 6 and 6.5 because of the scoring. But, and this is where the puck line comes into it. What's made overs and puck lines much more positive EV type bets is the fact that now coaching has changed. You'll see a team down by a couple of goals and they pull their goalie with 3 minutes left in the game. If you've got a puck line, it's great. When you've got an open net for 3 minutes, if you've got a total and you're betting the over, it's great when you've got your team looking at an empty net for 3 minutes. It's something that's changed in the sport. Coaches never pulled their goalies over a minute. It was usually a minute once they had the puck in the offensive zone and the goalie came out. It's 3 minutes now. This changes the game, and it has, and that's why totals, we see 6.5s, and every once in a while we see a 7.
Yeah, rarely, but yes. What are the pitfalls anyone betting hockey should avoid?
We're going to come back to the very first part where I talked, there's 1,230 games in the NHL. Do not force a bet. Do not bet just because there is a game. If you're watching this video a month from now, it won't make sense, but tomorrow night there's only 2 games. If you don't like them, you don't bet them. It's just move on, find something else, or don't bet. Forcing wagers because you need to have action in is one of the worst things. It's terrible bankroll management. You need bankroll management. Wager Talk is great in the sense of our players are rated at 2%, 3%, 4%, and 5%. That's 5% of your bankroll. Even a downward trend where you lose 6, 7 games in a row is not going to hurt your bankroll. Stay in the game. It's the most important part. Parlays, they're fantastic. They're great in the sense of they're fun, but again, your parlay should never be more than a unit, 1%. They're fun to watch, but just imagine on any given night you have 5 games in a parlay, you win 4, you lose 1. You hit 80% of your games and you lost. So that is a recipe for disaster. Avoid putting multiple units on parlays.
Of course. Is there anything else you want to add on to hockey handicapping?
No, I think if you're going to bet this sport, and this goes with any other sport that's out there, if you're a novice to this, find something that works and then stick to it. So you have to put time in. You can't just look at a game and go, oh, well, it's, Pittsburgh's in first and Buffalo's in last. Pittsburgh's going to win. It's not the way it works.
Right.
And you're going to pay juice in order to find out that that's not the way it works. Try and work on a structure. And if your game falls within that structure, you play the game. It's just the way it is. Even if a line looks off, if all the things that you're looking at, let's say backup goalie, a team playing the 3rd and 4 nights, coming back off a long road trip. If they fit within the structure that you're putting together for yourself, you play the game. It's just the way it is. Sometimes it's not there, you move on to tomorrow.
Beautiful. Thank you, Carmine. Guys, that was at Carmine Bianco WT on Twitter. And don't forget, $2 Tuesdays every Tuesday. Get the hottest handicappers best bet for just $2 at both wagertalk.com and our sister site, sportsmemo.com.